All right, welcome to episode 2 of the Jeff and Nick Show. I am Nick. I'm here with Jeff, wearing his
What's up,
Oklahoma
everybody?
Sooners hat.
Boomer Sooner. There'll be a
Take
reason for
care.
that later. Don't worry. There's a reason.
So,
We'll get to
we're
that
going to
later,
talk
though.
to you today about the Costner 3 for Love of the Game, Bull Durham, and Field of Dreams. Jeff, you want to recap episode 1 really quick?
Yeah, episode 1. We discussed Moneyball, Sandlot. Went over kind of just what the impressions of each of those films were on us. Especially as being a Bay Area guy, an A's fan. For me, for Moneyball, very impressionable on me. Read the book multiple times, and I think for both of us, we're talking about Sandlot, just how that brought about the memories of being a kid, playing baseball, playing any sport really, with your friends outside. So really good kickoff, I think. So two movies that are really important to us. Outside of just outside of our lives here, just something that means a lot to us. So it's good conversation, good way to kick off. So excited about today's, kicking it up a notch, adding a third movie. I like it.
Adding a third movie. We've got 3 movies this week, 3 movies next week. We'll see how we handle it, and then if we want to do 3 each week, we'll see how that goes. Let's
Right
start
on.
with For Love of the Game. That was released in
Yes.
1999. Kevin Costner, Kelly Preston, and the great Vin Scully. What
Yes.
what are some takeaways from that movie, Jeff?
Yeah, that's the great Vince Scully. When I heard that, I was like, wait, is that Vince Scully? Did I hear that right? He's doing Yankee games. Is that? I don't know much about Vince Scully pre 2002 when I moved here. So I started kind of watching Dodger games. Did he do Yankee games before? Was that a thing, or is that just for the movie?
That was just for the movie. He did Dodger games. There's a book that I read called Pull Up a Chair, and he would do football games as well. So his
Hmm.
last football game was the 1981 NFC Championship game.
The 49er one, right?
Correct, where he
Yeah,
called the
I
catch, the
remember he did
Dwight
that.
Clark catch. Um, that was his
That's
last
cool.
football game. He stuck with baseball. He did Game of the Week for a while, but he only did Yankee games when they were playing the Dodgers in the World Series.
Uh,
And he even referenced that when he was talking about Don Larson's perfect game in the 55 World Series, which I thought was awesome. He's always been one of my favorite broadcasters.
he's the
Um,
best. He really is. I mean,
and we,
even that, it was just natural hearing him on that. It was great watching it and hearing him again, and it was, I don't even think they needed to write those lines for him. You know what I mean? Like he could probably just got on there and just, here, this is the scene. And I'm sure he probably just went and like, I don't need lines. They don't need to write a script for me. I know what to say. That's what was great about Vince Scully. He could just fill in, he doesn't need anybody either. Like one guy who could call the game and do commentary at the same time. There's no one like him. He was really a treasure.
and on that topic, that was kind of funny about Steve Lyons is because this movie was filmed in the 90s based on his hairstyle.
Yeah.
You've got you've got the frosted tips, you've got
Yeah.
the bleached hair. He's a character. I remember running into him. I was late for a Dodger game. I had tickets that somebody gave me at the last minute, trying to find somebody, and I'm walking through the parking lot, and he's going one way, and I'm going the other. And he goes, "Oh, you're wearing the wrong jersey." Like, that's your opinion. That's your opinion.
Steve Lives. That's
Um,
funny. But
yeah.
yeah,
The
for
other
love of the
thing,
game, great thing, great movie. Well, I should say great movie. I thought it was a good movie. Let's go good. Um, Baseball scenes. I thought the baseball aspect of it was really good. I really like the the end of the career type guy. 19 years, Kevin Costner. He looked pretty good. I don't know if that was him throwing, but he looked pretty decent. His motion looked pretty good. I really like the scenes. I like how it played out in one game. Sam Raimi directed. It's hard to really bash on him. He's so good. He's such a good director. He makes such good movies. I did not
something
like the
about
love
Sam
story.
Raimi.
Oh
Did you
yeah, go for
know
it.
same about the love story? Did you know that he did the Hercules and Xena TV shows that came out
No,
in the
did he really?
90s?
No,
Yeah, I did
did
some.
not. Did he really?
I went down into the rabbit hole and I was checking him out. And I'm like, wait a second.
Dang,
So yeah, that was interesting.
that is great. I didn't know he did that at all. I didn't know he had any TV work. But yeah, I had some notes. The love story. I get it. It needed to have something else in there, and he needed to have another, plot line to go along with just besides the baseball and how that intertwines with his relationship with Kelly Preston and his relationship with baseball. But it was just a typical love story. They have the meet cute, so she's stranded on the side of the road. The damsel in distress. He comes, saves her. They fall in love. They have a breakup, and then they get back. It's same old cliched love story. So in that sense, I felt like we could have done a little bit better there. But you know, the baseball was really great. I really enjoyed the scenes. I mean, I've never seen it. I had never seen it before. I didn't really know anything much about it at all. Like I had a feeling it was about like the end of this dude's career because Kevin Costner was pretty old when he made it. So I had that kind of feeling. I knew right away, probably within the first few minutes, that it had something to do with a perfect game. I think Vince Scully said, or no, she said, Kelly Preston said, "You, the ball, the diamond are perfect." I was like, oh, there's gonna be a perfect game in this. So a lot of foreshadowing. I think they said, and Vince Scully said something about perfect. It's a perfect day. So definitely were a lot of foreshadowing. So I kind of got that feeling that was gonna happen. But it was still cool. It was, I don't know. I was like, oh, I already know what's gonna happen. But by the time it came around to it, I was really rooting for it. So I was glad that Rook who stepped in at the end didn't hit a single, and he got the perfect game. But I would like to call out that his stats. I don't know if you know what his stats were. I have it written down here. So Billy Chappell for the year at that point. So he had 211 innings pitched, 111 Ks, and 98 walks with a 3.55 ERA. I'm calling BS on that 3.55 ERA. There's no way dude is rolling with only 100, almost a 1-to-1 K to walk ratio, and he's rolling with a 3.55 ERA, but an 8-11 record. No,
Yeah.
not even. So
come on, Sam. Let's look into our baseball
like,
stats a little bit better.
yeah, what's that whip there? That whip is it's got to be high.
2 walks and a hit per inning. That's
Right.
not perfect game material.
Yeah,
Especially in Yankee Stadium.
Right. And you know, if we were to fall in baseball, he would have been number 17. I was looking it up. If following at the end of the year of if it was the baseball season of 99 or was it 98? I don't know which one it was. It was either 16 or 17 based on when that was, what the end of the season was. I had a note on that. I kind of looked up and looked at all those perfect games, and there were none in the 70s. I don't know if you knew that. Went from 1968 to like 1984. There's a break in no perfect game, something like that. So
I'm sure there were a lot of no hitters in the 70s, but not.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no perfect games.
Threw a couple, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, he threw a bunch, right? Yeah.
One other thing about this movie that was funny was John C. Reilly's character. You know, I'm so used to seeing him in comedies, and this was a serious role that I feel like he didn't fit.
Yeah.
If you would have cast somebody else as the catcher, you know, curly hair, dopey. Come on, Chappie, let's go, Chappie.
Yeah.
That was, you know, of all the things that I didn't care for, you know, him, Steve Lyons, you know, hairstyle. I thought it was a good movie. Definitely top 10 material, but not cracking the top 5.
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't do the top 5. Yeah, it was kind of funny. And Brian Cox there. I don't know any Succession fans out there. It was cool to see Brian Cox being the owner. Yeah, I had written down John C. Reilly, catcher, question mark. I had written down. So I'm like, it looked so small too up there. It's funny seeing guys, but it was kind of funny looking through the credit. While I was kind of watching the credits. Saw some names. I'm the one that's got Ricky Leday. I don't know if you remember that name. I know that name. I'm sure I couldn't pick him up the lineup, but I know that one. There's a couple other guys. I should have wrote them down, but it's kind of seeing what the ball players were. There's a few that stood out that were actually used. So it's always fun to see.
Ricky Leday.
Yeah. So yeah, it was good. It was a good movie. It was good. Past couple hours. Like I said, love story was definitely lacking. Baseball aspect I thought was pretty good. You know, I really like. You know, because those dudes, they live for it, man. They live for it. I can imagine. I'm obviously not a professional baseball player, but you know, they live for that, and that's their life. And you know, it's I really like the passion and the intensity that was ratcheted up in the later innings of that game, and you could tell, you know, he was really that they wanted to really emphasize that how much the game meant to him, and also, you know, interspersing that with how much the Kelly Preston character meant to him also. So I thought in that way it was good. Kind of the cross love there of baseball and love. Yeah, it was good.
The life of a ball player. All right.
Right.
Movie number 2, Bull Durham. This one was released in 1988, about a minor league season. Now this is one of my favorite movies, and you start the movie and you've got pictures of baseball of yesteryear. You've got so many great pictures, you know, and Susan Sarandon, she's the narrator, and she gets you into the movie. It's like the only church that's ever done me right is the Church of Baseball. And it's just so good. You know, it's such a good movie. This one's top 3 for me. You know, my
Yeah.
top three are interchangeable. You could go 1, 2, 3, 1A, 1B, 1C, but this one's top three. You've got Real Baseball. Tim Robbins' character, he's hilarious. You know, Nuke Lanoosh. Hey,
Luke.
Skip, you think I need a nickname? I was thinking Pokey. Robert Wool's character in this movie is by far the funniest. He's like, hey, let's go, Noosh. Let it go, let it go, let it go.
He was great.
Yeah. But what'd you think about it?
Oh, you're gonna hate me.
Kind of love
I
story.
I you know what, man? I didn't think it was that great. I don't know. I kind of remember watching it as a kid, and then I watched it again, and I don't know. It didn't grab me. I don't know what it was. I definitely like the Tim Robbins, but I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. I don't know if it was the acting was just so, I felt like it was just so bad.
There
Some of
was pretty
those
bad acting in
scenes,
spots in it
dude. Like
too.
there's one
Yeah.
scene, I think when Nuke was having that the nightmare, not on the when he was pitching naked or something, then he wakes up on the bus. Like that was funny, but then Costner comes over and then it ruins it with the act. Oh, it's okay. Or you're having a bad dream. I don't know. It's really bad acting, I thought. And
I have them all the time.
yeah, so I don't know. I thought it was a little, I hate to say overrated, but that was where I thought, I mean, it wasn't a bad movie and I definitely had moments. Um, for me, it's a little on the overrated side. I think not having, not having like a, not having a connection to it as a kid or as in my younger years. I didn't really watch it, I don't think, when I was in my 20s or kind of growing up, my formative years. So I don't think I have like a big connection to it. Like you probably like yourself, you probably have that. You watched it a bunch. I didn't really do that. So I think for me, watching it almost like for the first time here, I just kind of felt it was a little overrated. One thing I did like to call out though, there's a couple things on that. What I found was amusing. The Nuke's first game, he set the record: 18 walks, 18 strikeouts. That was great. I did the math
New
on that.
league
That's
record.
new league record. That's 126 pitches just on that right there. That doesn't include hits, foul balls, anything like that. So I mean, we're talking about dudes probably pushing up 150 pitches in
Easily.
that game. So that was just different time back then, which they probably let him go. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the one thing actually I really did enjoy about the movie was the Susan Sarandon, not her character so much, because I thought she was kind of, I don't know, that was just weird. But what I liked, and I thought I saw a good parallel here, was the way that she narrated. Was, if you notice, it was kind of how when she had Nuke strapped up to the bed, she started reading to him, and she explained how like she gets guys, and then she reads to them. I felt the way the way that she narrated the movie was how it's kind of like we're strapped there and she's talking to us as she is doing that to her ball players that she's trying to get ahead in life. I thought that was kind of a cool way to kind of incorporate that. The way that she talks to them is kind of the way that she's talking to the audience. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing that Ron Shelton did there. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that's the feeling that I got from that. Sorry, I went to school for film, so I do a lot of analyzing here. So
And that's fine. I love that.
much.
Center field, that song was actually something that John Fogerty. I did some research on that. John Fogerty came up with that. He's like, "Oh, come on, put me in, coach." That's something that he would say to his coaches when he was younger. And Brown Eyed Handsome Man, rounding third and headed for home. That's off of a Carl Perkins song. Carl Perkins or Chuck Berry. It's a Chuck Berry song called Brown Eyed Handsome Man. And so he pulled that off of that. And then another song that was in this movie that you don't hear too often is George Thorogood's "Born to Be Bad." So when Nuke's dancing in the bar, and they've got Max Patkin and Annie Silvera
That's
sitting
right.
there. Yeah. That song, that movie turned me on to that song, and you don't hear it a lot. So I think that's one of George Thorogood's most underrated songs. It was great seeing Max Patkin. He only had a couple years in the minor leagues, and I remember we had these things called sports pages when I was a kid, and it was, the clown prince of baseball, Max Patkin, and it had him in half an Expos jersey and half something else. And, the guy he brought some youthful exuberance to baseball when, a lot of times you need a pick me up.
Yeah. You need that around there. Yeah. That I did appreciate. I didn't realize he was that was actual, like, that was a real dude. That's a real guy. That's not just for the story. I guess I didn't realize that. No, that's cool. I'll have to check him
And
out then. Yeah.
the catcher's mitt they used was the Durham Bulls catcher at that time, or their catching coach. It's he's
Oh.
the current manager of the Braves, Brian Snicker.
Oh,
That was something
really?
I found out. Yeah, that was something I found out
Oh, that's
the
cool.
last couple of years when they started talking more about him with the Braves, because he's been a Braves lifer, and so that
Yeah.
was awesome to hear. So
Hey, what's your favorite scene in that movie?
there's my favorite scene. It's kind of funny because I got a couple, but one of them is the lollygagger scene. So the coach is like, "Oh, they're just kids. What do I do? You got to scare them, scare
Oh
them."
yeah.
I got an idea, and so he grabs all the bat and he throws them into the showers.
Oh, that's
Lollygag the
right. Yeah.
ball around the infield. Lollygag the ball. And so maybe about 15 years ago, the Durham Bulls had done a sale where they were selling shirts just like the movie. And one of them said lollygaggers across the chest, and I bought it. And
That's cool.
heaven knows where that shirt is now, but that was one of them. And I think the other one that I bought was hit the bull and win a steak.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, there were some, for me, there's some good scenes in this movie. The dynamic between a rookie pitcher and a veteran catcher, that was
Yeah.
awesome.
I did like those scenes. Those scenes were really good where he's telling him what's coming, and the second time it happened, he's like, "You told him, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah."
Get
that
that
was
ball so
great.
far you could put a
Those
damn
were great.
stewardess on it. And the rainout scene, that one's one of my favorites too, because anytime it rains, when my kids were playing this year and it's like, oh, rain, 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 like, all right, cool, let's just have sliding practice. What do you mean sliding practice? And so I'll send a meme of the movie, because that's what I think of every time that it rains. Like,
That's
all
cool.
right, cool, let's just go have fun.
Yeah.
My mom would have a fit if I came home with clothes soaked. These guys are like, shut up, you're gonna wake everybody up.
That's
So,
cool. Right on.
all right, and now Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
This movie was released the year after. It was released in 1989. Kevin Costner, Ray Liotta, James Earl Jones. The cast in this movie is, second to none. Tell me about this movie, Jeff. What did you think about it?
Man. So I haven't watched it in a while. This one, I was like, oh, I know Field of Dreams. I don't need to watch it. I've seen it many times. However, did get it and watched it last night. Watched it with my daughter, and I was bawling by the end, just absolutely bawling. My daughter's like, "Why are you crying?" Because I don't usually cry at movies. And I told her, "Honey, one day you'll understand." Um, but God, it's such a good movie. That's the best of the three. That's the one. And I think we can do some rankings later, but it's so good. I love the story. I love the tenderness of it. I know, but it's just so warm-hearted. It's I love the magic, the mysticism in it, sprinkled in throughout it. With the ghosts and the field, and the slight walking into a wormhole where he first meets Burt Lancaster, Moonlight Graham. Like, that is so cool. It's just really neat. And I like how they didn't ever, it wasn't, nobody was freaking out. It was, a little bit, obviously freaked out a little bit at the beginning, like he's hearing the voices and everything. But I like as it progressed, it just became natural, it became part of their lives. It wasn't like, oh my God, I see a ghost, let me freak out. It was natural. It just felt natural flow to the movie. It felt a natural flow to the characters of how they just came to accept it and feel like they were being like chosen for this. Like I said, heartwarming, great story, much better acting, I think, than the other ones. Amy Madigan, the wife, man, she's great. I love
She
her in
does
that
an amazing
movie.
job.
The scene where she it's a scene about banning books. I mean, geez, how we've come full circle, for God's sakes. They're banning books in Florida and stuff like that. I don't want to get political and get into that, but it's just interesting that even back with 89, he said this was made, so it's probably made
Yeah.
88, 89. It came out in 89, so it's probably made in 88. Just talking about that. I mean, that's 35 years ago, or my math is right, but it's still relevant to today. Those type of conversations. It's interesting to hear. And the books they wanted to ban were Diary of Anne Frank and The Wizard of Oz, which my kids just read was Anne Frank. So it's interesting. I thought that was kind of interesting and kind of tied into life today. And my daughter also wanted me to point out that they called their daughter Pumpkin, which is what I call my daughter. So she really liked that too. But yeah, really, really good movie. Um, yeah. What about you?
This is one of my
What's your thoughts
favorites.
on it? Yeah.
Um, I'm the same way. You know, I'm bawling at this movie because it's just so sentimental.
Hmm.
You know, James Earl Jones in this movie was
So good.
spectacular. Um, the first scene where Kevin Costner and Ray Liotta meet is magical. It's
He's
like,
so
I've
good.
heard so many stories about you, and I was born in 52 and you died in 51. And the love affair between Joe Jackson, you get to see how they portrayed that. You know, the one thing I didn't really care for, not necessarily didn't care for, but that cinematic difference was Shoeless Joe is a lefty.
Oh,
And
was it? Oh, okay.
so Ray Liotta is throwing with his left hand, but he's hitting right-handed. And so that's one of the things like you kind of take away from it where you start to understand that you have to make these decisions for the movie
Hmm.
based on how these actors are actually going to do it, because you're not going to have a stand-in for Ray Liotta hitting. You know,
Yeah.
what kind of lefty are you going to find that looks like him in the 80s that can hit the ball like that? Um, the people will come speech, you know, that's the shirt that I'm wearing. You know, this game, it's a part of our past. You know, it
Yeah.
reminds us of what was good and what can be again. Um, you know, when Ray's
So
in,
good.
back to when Ray's in Minnesota and he sees Moonlight Graham walking the other way and he's got that umbrella in his hand and it's like, oh, what's the
Yeah.
umbrella for? You know, to fight off my lady admirers.
So
Um,
good.
and then he looks up at the theater and it's, you know, the movie of the year, The Godfather. Like, wait a
Godfather.
second, The
Yep.
Godfather was released in the 70s. What's
70s.
going on? And then
70.
he rubs that license plate tag and it's like, oh, we're in 73. And
Yep.
it's just, you know, the music throughout was just
So yeah.
so perfect. However Phil Alden Robinson made that work, it was superb. um
I agree. Yeah, the music. I made to know the music too. It's almost like Scorsese does the same thing. His music and his movie. Like if you watch Goodfellas, if you ever noticed the music in that, it's just absolutely fabulous. It's amazing. It just takes you on a journey. You could almost listen to the soundtrack of the and picture the movie in your head. So yeah, I made a note that the music was really well done in here. The musical choices. Um, yeah, and I thought, yeah, mentioned that Burt Lancaster, man. I mean, did he put on a master class of acting or what? I mean, he just shows up, owns every single scene he is in. Just what a phenomenal actor. And I think one of his last roles too, I believe. Just did an amazing job of as the older Moonlight Graham. And you know, and I was talking to my daughter about it after, and you know, she's like, why are you crying? And you know, I told her, you know, and it's a story about at the base of this movie, it's a story about a guy trying to reconnect with his dad. You know, that's really what it is. You know, if you build it, and she guessed right away what it was about, or right away. You know, he will come. She's like, I bet it's his dad. I'm like, you're ruining the movie. Just wait. So
Ruined the movie already.
she completely guessed it. But you know, at the bare bones of this movie, it's about a guy trying to reconnect with his dad. He had a falling out with his dad, said some mean things, left, didn't really get a chance to reconnect, and this was his opportunity. And you know, I don't, and that didn't happen with my dad. I don't know what your relationship with your dad, but my dad and I have a great relationship now. But you know, his health has really deteriorated over the past 10 years. He had a really bad form of cancer, and it's really just kind of taken a lot out of him. And you know, he was big into sports, and you know, as growing up, um, you know, whereas the Kevin Costner character and his dad were, you know, he heard stories of Shoeless Joe Jackson. I kind of bonded over that. Ours, for me, my dad, it was Oklahoma. Sooners. My whole family is from Oklahoma. I grew up watching the Sooners. You know, Bosworth, those Sooner teams of the late '80s, just dominating out there. Um, you know, I had a little Brian Bosworth jersey when I was young. So, you know, growing up watching that, I remember watching the 2000 national championship. The Sooners, I think they beat Miami. Was it Miami? I can't remember who they beat now. I'm drawing a blank, but I think they won like 10-2 or something like that, 9-2. It was a weird score, and I remember watching that with my dad and my grandma, and that was one of the last things my grandma did too before she passed. And just, you know, it brings back memories of those. And I told my daughter, you know, that's why I got a little sad there, just remembering those times of playing catch with my dad, you know, in the backyard, playing sports with him, watching sports with my dad, and that's where it really hit home. And You know, I told her, you just wait till I get older, you'll understand, honey. So you'll understand when you get older, and I can't. I'm starting to hit the end of my life, and so it was just really. I think it definitely hit another nerve and touched some more feelings now as I get older and seeing my dad get older and not being able to do as much. So it was really really good. I really like that movie.
Yeah,
I
for
need my
me, this
son to see it
movie,
now.
yeah. My mom passed when I was 14, so this movie, it's definitely one of those where it's like if you build it, he will come. But for me, it's my mom because my mom was one of the reasons that I'm into baseball so much.
Hmm.
And growing up, she was a big Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson fan. So this was one of those movies that I watched. This Robin Hood, Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner, one of my favorite actors ever. Ray Liotta, one of my favorite actors ever because I love him in Goodfellas. That
So
scene
good.
where Robert De Niro smoking that cigarette and cream comes on, perfect.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen that clip on YouTube many times. And even his character in Blow. And there's another movie that we'll talk about called Chasing 3000. It's a movie about a couple of brothers who are trying to get to Roberto Clemente's 3000 hit game. He plays an older character in that movie, and that's the only reason that I watched that movie because he was in it. And it turned out it's a good story. The acting's kind of bad, but back to this movie. My first time at Fenway, I sat, third base side, about halfway up.
Nice.
I was keeping the score, looking at the Green Monster. I went to Fenway twice in one year. I'm very happy that I did that. And there's not much I
Cool.
don't like. You're not going to find me saying much that I didn't like about this movie, aside from a couple of quotes that were kind of misread. I remember Ty Cobb, that quote that Ty Cobb said, where it's like, that's where Triples go to die. He didn't say that about Shoeless Joe. He said that about somebody
Uh,
else. And
oh,
um,
interesting.
yeah, what I don't like is how emotional I get during this movie because I'm like a babbling mess.
Yeah.
Michelle will ask me, what's wrong? What's going on? It's like, I just finished Field of Dreams and it's just so
It
good. I cry because it's so good and it's so
is.
comforting and soothing because those players on the White Sox, like, oh, that how come there's lights? And well, all the fields have lights now.
Yeah.
Well, the owners.
The
And
owners.
that goes back to what they were going through in the 1918, 1919, 1920 season where they're not getting paid. It's like you're making a promise and I got nothing to go on based on your promise. And then you basically just, tell me I'm full of it and to go away.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
I had
was
to explain all
great.
that. I explained all that to my daughter. Basically the plot to 8 Men Out. Yeah, because she was a little like, I don't know, oh, who are these people? What are they doing? Why are they? Why is there 8 of them? Why is it not a full team? So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely had to lay out the kind of give the background of that. Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's an interesting part of baseball history that that whole thing, which I'm sure we'll get into on another episode here. But yeah, I'm with you, man. It's so emotional, especially at the end as it goes. And man, just that scene where he comes and saves the daughter, you know, God, Burt Lancaster, man. Jeez, no, I mean, even his walk was better than everybody else's, and this coming out, you know, you see him pop his head out. Oh, hey, look, I can help that. And that just really goes to show what he was saying. Like he was meant to be a doctor. He wasn't meant to be a baseball player. You know, he said, what would my life been like if I only got to be a doctor for 5 minutes? Like, wow, how powerful. Like you don't think of, like people who are that, like that should, you would think for you, I'm sure, just like me, like that would be the dream, being a baseball player. I'm like, man, playing in a big league game, that would have been the dream. But, for his character, helping people,
Yeah.
just that was his life. Yeah, that was his destiny, really, if you think about it. And, it was funny. I don't know if they kept playing games or if that was his only game, but, technically, he still didn't have an at bat. He had a sac fly, which is not an at bat. So
Nope.
just technically, poor Moonlight Graham, still, he has an RBI, but still technically no at bat. So I thought that
No
was
at
kind of
bat.
amusing.
He winked. Why'd you throw at
Yeah.
him? Because he
Oh,
winked
so
at me.
great. Because he winked at me.
Um, the other thing I did like is that a lot of the people that you saw in the background of this movie are local Iowa residents.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all the people in the farm shop in that opening scene where it's like, did you ever hear voices? All those people were extras that were living in
Neat.
town. And then at the end of the movie, they got people from all around Iowa to line up to do that car scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so
That's
that to
neat.
me
That's really cool.
it goes into that movie making magic for me. Again, this movie I could watch it forever. I could listen to it in the background, know what's happening, know what scene it is, hear that Doobie Brothers song where they're driving, and I'm like, cool, I'm in. You got me, hook, line, and sinker. Going to
I'm
Boston,
watching.
and yeah, it could be on if I'm flipping through the TV somewhere where I don't have my setup. Oh, Field of Dreams is on. Cool. I don't have to go for
Watching it.
anything else. I'm watching it. Um, Anything else you want to discuss for episode 2?
Let's see. No, that was we'll go back to the just Field of Dreams. A couple notes I put. Hey, it was Red Sox A's, by the way. Go A's. Hope they won that game. Notice the yellow socks. Haven't had those since I think the late '90s. So that was kind of fun to see that. Like, hey, look, they're playing the A's, my team. Yeah, and my daughter did want to point out that she guessed the whole plot. So
Really good. Thanks.
Yeah. So how would you rank? How do you rank these in your Kevin Costner? What's the 1, 2, 3?
One is definitely Field of Dreams, just because of how
Yeah.
attached I get to this movie. Bull Durham is top 3, interchangeable with The Natural. For Love of the Game is definitely cracking that top 5.
Yeah.
It's hard for me because I hate ranking things. It's such a hard.
It's a fluid. They can be fluid. It can be next week your
Yeah.
mood might change and be like, no, I think that's number 2 now.
Yeah, it's
I feel you.
just so tough. I don't know how people rank things, and it's like you're held to that. I don't want to be held to it, but Field of
Yeah.
Dreams is my favorite baseball movie. Just being able to have it on and knowing where the movie is and understanding the plot line and having read the book. I talked to my brother, and my he's not a baseball fan. He's like my dad, and it's like, how come you're so attached to this movie? It's like, you have to watch it to understand it,
Yeah.
and watch it without any expectations or any knowledge of what's going on, because it's so good. You know baseball, but you're not a baseball fan.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
somebody who's, it's the history of baseball that gets me. You could draw me in hook, line, and sinker, like, hey, I'm making a baseball history movie. Cool. You let me know when it comes out, and I will be the first person to go see it. I will love it.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. Like, I was raised on stories of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig by my grandfather and my uncle. So these are all things that I remember hearing about, and then it's like, and the great Shoeless Joe. And once I started to understand that more, I started to fall in love with Shoeless Joe more and do more research and find out a lot of things about him that we'll discuss next episode, because we're going to discuss one of his main movies next.
All right. Great.
Yeah, next week we're doing Major League 1, Major League 2, and 8 Man Out. We're calling those the Sheen 3.
There's Charlie Sheen. All right. Moving on to Big Charlie. Like it.
Awesome.
Sweet,
Thank you
man.
guys
All
very
right.
much. Appreciate it. Jeff, until next week, sir. We
All right, Nick.
will be in touch.
All right, brother. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
sir. You too.